Have you ever really looked at the objects around you? I mean, really looked? And wondered about their secret lives? The history that's hidden in a worn-out cover, a faded stamp, or a handwritten note? Well, today, we're going to be detectives. We're going to uncover the incredible, globe-trotting story of just one single book. Let's dive in. So our story doesn't start on page 1. Not at all. It actually starts with all the clues that were left on its surface over, well, decades. These are like the physical fingerprints of its long journey. Okay, clue number 1. It's this simple, handwritten address on a piece of wrapping paper. It's a destination, the Valluvar Library at 130 Anson Road, Singapore. So we know this is where our book was heading at some point. But as you're about to see, this was just one little stop on a much, much longer journey.
Right, so this book didn't just belong to one library. It passed through so many different hands, and each one left its own mark. It's kind of like a chain of custody that stretches across decades and even continents. So let's start peeling back the layers.
So we open the cover and there it is, our first official mark. It's a stamp from the Royal Bookstall in Singapore. This is almost definitely where the book was first sold after it arrived in the country.
And here we go. This is the stamp that confirms the address we saw on the wrapping paper, the Valluvar Library. So now we know it was sold in a local bookshop, and then it became part of a library's collection, for the whole community to read and borrow.
But then we find the most personal mark of all, this bold purple stamp. It turns out this book had a long-term owner, a Mr. S. Somaiah, who lived in Jurong East. So this wasn't just some library book anymore, it was part of someone's personal collection, a treasured possession, which begs the question, what was so special about it?
To really get why someone would cherish this book so much, we've got to look past the cover and dive into the world it describes. A world of ancient kings, master builders, and a really powerful South Indian empire.
The title page tells us everything we need to know. The book is called Pre-Pallava Era, which translates to History of Pallavas. It's a deep dive into an ancient dynasty that completely shaped the culture and architecture of southern India.
And that's a totally fair question. They might not be as famous around the world as, say, the Romans or the Egyptians, but believe me, their legacy is just as monumental.
The Pallavas were, above everything else, absolute master builders. And this right here, this is their genius on full display. It's the Shore Temple at Mamallapuram, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was carved out of rock back in the 8th century, and it has survived over 1,000 years of wind and sea. This is the world this book brings to life.
And they weren't just a flash in the pan either. Their rules spanned over 500 years. The dynasty got started around 350 AD, hit its cultural and architectural peak around the 7th century, and the rule finally came to an end near 900 AD. That is a massive stretch of history, all packed into this one book. Okay, so now we know what the book is about. But how did this history of an ancient Indian dynasty, printed in the middle of the 20th century, end up in the hands of Mr. Somaiah in Singapore? Let's trace that part of the journey. Okay, get this. The first edition was printed in March of 1944. Now, just stop and think about that timing. Right in the middle of World War II, a publisher in India felt it was absolutely crucial to preserve and share this history. That alone tells you just how important this story was to them. And here is where we connect the dots. On the left, you see the publisher in Madras, which is now Chennai, and on the right, the bookstall in Singapore. The book literally traveled across the Bay of Bengal, becoming this physical link that connected two really vibrant centers of Tamil culture.
So here's the crucial point. This book was so much more than just a history text. For the Tamil community in Singapore, for a diaspora that was building new lives so far from their ancestral home, books like this were a lifeline. They were a way to connect with their roots, their language, and the grand history of their people.
This brings us to the final chapter of our book's story. Well, so far. Because a book like this, it isn't meant to just sit on one shelf forever. Its story keeps going through the people who preserve it. Let's go back to Mr. Somaiah for a moment. You can just imagine him reading this book, being transported back to the world of the Pallavas. For him, holding this was probably like holding a tangible piece of his own heritage, a real connection to a history that defined his culture. So let's just recap its incredible journey really quick. Published during a world war, sold in a local shop, loaned out from a community library, and treasured by a private owner. But you know what? The final step of its journey is maybe the most important one of all.
Because Mr. Somaiah's family,
They understood that this book's value wasn't just in being owned. Its real value was in being shared.
So, after Mr. Somaiah passed away, his family donated the book to the Singapore Tamil Youths Club Library. Its journey came completely full circle, from one library to another, from one generation to the next. It's not just one man's treasure anymore. It's a piece of community history, available for young people to discover all over again.
And that really makes you think, doesn't it? Every single object has a story, a faded cover, a stamp, a signature. What secret histories are sitting on your shelf right now, just waiting for a detective to come along and piece them all together?